Listen, we all pay closer attention when there's a new show in HBO's big Sunday night slot. The new one is called Task. It is a gritty crime drama. Mark Ruffalo plays this really sad FBI agent trying to just figure out this biker gang situation. I got excited when I learned this from the creator of Mare of Easttown. But can Task compare? I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Rachel Ho's here. Kathryn VanArendonk is here. Hello, friends. How are you?
Hello. Doing well.
Nice to have you here. Listen, Kathryn, I'm going to start with you on this. Would you do us the honors of just setting up what Task is about?
All right. Task will not break any rule books of television that you have not encountered many times before. I'm going to tell you, and you're going to be shocked to discover that there's some sad white men in particular. There's a sad white man FBI agent, and there's a sad man garbage man, and there's a sad man drug kingpin. And these three guys are kind of triangulated around each other in crime, grisly and alarming. And our experience over the course of this minisode is who's gonna get found out? What will happen? Will Mark Ruffalo, our hero, figure out how to save the day? Except maybe himself. I mean, again, none of these tropes are going to surprise anyone, but there is such a comfort in seeing them executed well. And I do think Task brings that to the table.
I think I am someone who does not fear tropes. I love a good trope because the tropes are tropes for a reason. These are classics that we keep returning to, and if they're done well, you go, that pulls at all the things I want out of a drama, and thank you for delivering this to me. Which, honestly, for me, Task is delivering that. We'll get to that in just a moment. Rachel, I think it's worth talking about the fact that, unlike Mare of Easttown, which, shout out Mare of Easttown, this is not a whodunit. We sort of, we know from the very start who's trying to catch who's trying to evade who, why they're trying to do so. So what is the tension? If the show gives you so much of that up front, what's the reason you think to keep watching the show?
I don't think it's to see how Ruffalo catches the bad guy. To me, that was not the most uninteresting part, but it was something that I felt really secondary in the show, which I actually thought was really interesting, though, about the show, that is set up to be a cops and robbers show. The chase and the tension is not between the cops and robbers. It's actually comes across as more of a family drama and separate families, and then somehow they two commingle and layer kind of on top of one another eventually. But it is interesting to me that a show that is so, we expect it to be almost like Heat, it's a cat and mouse game and they're going after each other, but it's not like that at all. And really you're wondering, why is Ruffalo so sad? Why are these white men so sad? Why are they so angry? Sad. And they're so sad. It's unbelievable how sad they are, but you're wondering why. And that's to me is the tension in the show, and where that's the task of the show, if you will, is figuring out what's going on with these guys. Not so much the action. This is a very subdued, which it might throw some people off because it's certainly being marketed as more of a, as a more upfront actiony type of show, which it's not. Yeah. But there are still a lot of positives in that, though.
Yeah, the department in charge of cutting trailers did not get every episode, I don't think, up front. Because I think it's a slow start to the show. I think the first episode, I was like, maybe more is going to happen here. And then when something happens, you go okay, well, now it's really happening. Whoever cut the trailer, they were like, oh, we really got to pick our moments here, because that is not what the show is about. It is about living in the sadnesses of these people and the ways that these sadnesses sort of get deeper and deeper. And speaking of those sadnesses, Mark Ruffalo is obviously the biggest star. He's the draw. He's the poster sad man, that makes you click on the thing and go okay, I will watch this thing. But there's so much buzz around Tom Pelphrey's performance as Robbie. I just want to play this real quick here's Robbie. He's talking to his niece, Maeve, in this clip. Let's hear it.
I just need a few days.
What's going to change in a few days?
Money. $1 million, maybe more. I do understand that I up, okay? I understand that. Just let me take care of my kids. Okay? Maeve, you're the only family I got left.
Oh man, the sadness again. Kathryn, what do you think of Tom Pelphrey's performance in this show?
So sad. He I was really drawn to it, and I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that I think Mark Ruffalo is so good in it. He is good as he always is, but I have seen him do this kind of like, how is he even managing to walk through a room without all of his body just dissolving into a puddle performance before? And it is a magic trick that I am impressed by, but familiar with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has his face loves to crumple. And that is a thing that I think is deployed really well in this show. But there is so much pleasure in finding actors who can do a thing that you have not seen from them and you have not seen in this particular way. And I think Pelphrey is he's so able to live in this kind of the how stuck he is. So much of the tragedy of it is really about feeling they are in this inescapable place, and it does not crumple in the way Ruffalo does. It is a much more reserved and he is in excruciating pain, and his eyes are so capable of communicating that so clearly that I personally find it to be a more compelling and like interesting and multi-layered performance.
I'm interested in that idea of stuckness because I do think that like all of these characters in many ways they're performing to that stuckness. Like that's like sort of the engine of the show is how do I get out of the stagnation that has kind of been so overwhelming in every aspect of my life. And you kind of you watch the show and go like, well, obviously the cops are trying to catch the bad guys. The bad guys are trying to get away from the cops. It's like, no, everyone's just versus their own stuckness in this. And that's what the show does so well is go like, yeah, cops, bad guys, but forget all that for a moment. Everyone is sort of it really be your own people and really be your own stuckness that you're kind of like fighting against in terms of this entire show. I want to come back to that in just a moment and just say, Rachel, we've talked about the sadness of these men. It's worth talking about the fact that the supporting characters of the show are all women and they are doing an entirely different thing. Where do they fit into the story?
They're not so sad. The women aren't so sad. The women are more frustrated. They're more angry. They're more kind of, what did you do? Why are you doing this to us and to our family? And, Amelia Jones, who was in Coda, that's the thing that I think most of us know her from. She's a British actress, did a lot of other stuff before Coda. But this is like a really different role for her. She plays Maeve. She plays the niece. And in many ways, because the show does become more of a family drama than a crime thriller, Maeve ends up being this really important kind of crux that is working for both of the men, but specifically more so on Robbie's side. But she delivers this performance that I think she doesn't get nearly as much screen time as all the sad men do. But I found her to be so compelling, so interesting to watch as someone kind of along what Kathryn's saying about being stuck. She feels stuck in her own position and her own situation of what's going on around her, and that she doesn't have as much control because all these things are happening to her, and there's not much wiggle room for her to act. And when she thinks that, oh, I can do it this way, I can go that way, and then she kind of second guesses herself and goes, actually, like, I can't, or she doesn't want to for a variety of reasons. But I think it's a wonderful performance from her. There's a wonderful FBI agent. Her name is Lizzie. She frustrates me so much in it. She's so terrible at her job, but I find her to be such a great reprieve in the story like this, where you have someone who is quite incompetent, but there's something about her that it makes her more than just incompetent. There's something going on with her in her personal life that is kind of breeding this incompetence in many ways. But the women, it's incredible. And we have Martha Plimpton as well, who I think does such a fantastic job.
Yes.
And she's playing Tom's boss. I think she's I always think of her from the Goonies still. So it's really cool to see her in like a grown up role. I'm like, wow, look at you. But she's absolutely fantastic. But I can't say enough good things though about Amelia Jones. I was really taken by her performance in this.
So if these are the forces, Catherine, the forces are this sort of stagnation and frustration, this idea of like a deep stuckness in place. The creator of Task, Brad Inglesby, has talked sort of about the fact that like he created Mare of Easttown, as we talked about in the intro, and both of these shows are set in Philadelphia, and it feels like Philadelphia is a very important character in the show. This idea of like this Philadelphia universe where stuckness is kind of a language where everyone kind of operates. That was the case also in Mare of Easttown. Can you just talk a little bit about like the ways that this show is using place?
Yeah, I'm going to do some America-splaining to you. Apologize in advance for that. They're not in Philadelphia. They are specifically in a place called Delco, which is Delaware County, which is outside of Philadelphia proper, but is adjacent to it, close to it.
Thank you for
And
America-splaining to me. I appreciate
it's
it.
important because it is outside of this urban zone. Like Philadelphia is a very urban downtown place. And where they live is going to feel a lot more like it's this kind of border into a suburban, even rural area. And very quickly, sort of politically and socioeconomically, culturally, the border has shifted away from what a sort of major urban center is like and into this sense of like, does anyone remember that we're out here? The schools are not as good. The jobs do not pay as well. I feel left behind by any number of like elements of the culture, but they are also not so far out in the middle of nowhere where it's like, you know, they're not in the American West. Nobody's doing a Taylor Sheridan like cowboy hat here. They are really in this kind of liminal space that for saying that, don't come after me, Delco people. Like I understand that it has a huge amount of its own culture and all these cultural norms, which is always so funny to me to be listening to in this show and in Mare of Easttown. Everyone's constantly just like, couldn't be on time because Wawa had to make another carafe. And you're like, okay, he was at the Wawa, we got it. You should count how many times they say water ice. They are really flying the flag. And so they are rooted in this place that allows them to really narrativize that stuckness, right? Like, do I go this way? Do I go that way? How do all of these different forces that feel like they're much larger than myself impact me in this really personal way?
So all the reviews, Rachel, have talked about like the idea that this show is like a glum and kind of depressing show, and I actually genuinely love that. There's also in this coveted Sunday night slot on HBO, right? This idea of like it's a really relatively slow comparatively to other shows that occupy the slot. Does it have to do anything to earn the slot, do you think? To me, kind of feels novelistic and kind of fits in pretty well there. But with like maybe 30 seconds to go, do you think the pacing of the show makes it worthy of the HBO Sunday night slot?
Yes, I do. I think that if you
I love the hesitation.
It's a qualified yes. If you can get through the first episode, if you can just charge your way through it, it is a good show. I wouldn't say it's nearly as great as Mare of Easttown. I don't think it's as great as some of the other shows that have taken up that time slot either, but it is a very good show still though. But you do have to wade through a little bit and kind of be patient and just work through it. And I understand it sounds like homework and that shouldn't be what a TV show is, but sometimes you got to kind of go through a bit of a slower languid pacing to get to something that is a little bit more exciting and interesting. So I do think it is a good show. I do think it's worthy of it. I understand why it was put into that time slot because it makes sense to me. But it is one of those, especially because it's a weekly drop and we're so used to now like getting 10 episodes in one go. I think it is worthy, but you just got to stick with it.
I think that's a good place to leave it. I appreciate your time. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, the best time. Rachel Ho is a film editor for Exclaim, and Kathryn VanArendonk is a critic at Vulture. New episodes of Task are out Sundays on Crave.